Welcome to Law and the Machine, where artificial intelligence meets the legal system, liability, regulation, intellectual property, and the government's uncomfortable role as both rulemaker and AI adopter. The law wasn't written for this.
A company faces a discrimination lawsuit over its hiring practices. Their defense? The algorithm made the decision, not us.
That's the emerging AI alibi in human resources. Companies claiming their AI tools are objective and therefore absolve them of responsibility when those tools produce discriminatory outcomes. But the legal system is starting to ask, can a machine truly take the fall for a human decision that impacts someone's livelihood?
That sounds like an evasion. Algorithms don't just spring into existence. They're built, trained, and deployed by people. But this idea of AI as an unassailable, neutral arbiter, it's a powerful one, isn't it?
It is, especially in HR. The promise of AI is to remove human bias, to find the best candidate efficiently. But what is being observed is that far from removing bias, these systems often amplify it, creating a new layer of complexity for accountability. The alibi is tempting because it suggests a level of objectivity that simply doesn't exist in practice.
This isn't just about an algorithm making a wrong call. This is about deep-seated biases getting codified and automated. Where is this playing out most acutely in HR?
Everywhere, from the initial resume screening to video interview analysis, performance evaluations, and even promotion or termination recommendations. Take resume screening. If an AI is trained on historical hiring data from a company that predominantly hired men for leadership roles, what do you think it learns? It learns to prefer resumes that mirror those successful candidates, inadvertently sidelining qualified women or minority applicants.
It's basically taking existing, often unconscious, human biases and supercharging them. It's like asking a biased historian to write the future. The AI isn't inventing new prejudice, it's just really good at finding patterns in problematic past decisions.
Exactly, and it does so at scale. An individual hiring manager might interview a handful of candidates with a certain bias, but an AI can screen tens of thousands of applicants globally, replicating and embedding that bias across an entire organization or even across an industry almost instantaneously. The impact becomes systemic.
And that's where the legal systems designed for human intent and human actions start to buckle. How do you prove intent to discriminate when the decision is buried in layers of neural networks and training data?
That's the black box problem. Many of these algorithms are so complex, even their creators can struggle to fully explain why a particular decision was made. For regulators and plaintiffs, this opacity is a huge hurdle. Traditionally, anti-discrimination law looks at either disparate treatment, intentional discrimination, or disparate impact, where a neutral policy disproportionately harms a protected group regardless of intent.
So, with an AI, proving disparate treatment is nearly impossible without full transparency into the algorithm's mechanics. It's hard to argue an algorithm intended to discriminate. But disparate impact, that seems like a more fertile ground.
It is. The focus shifts from intent to outcome. If an AI-powered hiring tool consistently screen out women, or older workers, or people from certain zip codes, then regardless of whether anyone intended that, the impact is discriminatory. The challenge then becomes how to identify and measure that impact, and then how to hold the right parties accountable. Is it the vendor who sold the tool? The company that deployed it? Both.
And that becomes incredibly messy, especially when companies might not even fully understand what their AI is doing under the hood. They bought a black box solution and now they're left defending its inscrutable choices.
Precisely. This is why there is a push for what are called bias audits and impact assessments in emerging regulations. New York City's Local Law 144, for instance, is a landmark example. It requires employers using automated employment decision tools to subject them to an independent bias audit annually.
So NYC is essentially saying, you can use these tools, but you have to show that they're not causing harm. It's shifting the burden of proof, in a way, from the applicant trying to prove discrimination to the company needing to prove their tool is fair.
That's a crucial shift. And it's not just about proving fairness after a lawsuit. It's about proactive measures, identifying and mitigating bias before deployment, and continuously monitoring it. The EU AI Act takes an even broader approach, classifying AI in employment as high risk and subjecting it to stringent requirements for data governance, human oversight, robustness, and accuracy.
This suggests that regulators are no longer accepting the AI alibi. They're moving towards the deployer and developer having a clear, demonstrable responsibility.
Absolutely. The conversation is evolving from the algorithm did it to show how one ensured an algorithm didn't do it. Transparency, explainability, and auditability are no longer just ethical buzzwords, they're becoming legal necessities. The idea is to make the black box a little less opaque, or at least require a clear report on what's happening inside.
This highlights a recurring theme in discussions of this topic, the curious dance between regulators and the regulated, especially when the government itself is becoming a major customer for these AI systems. A fascinating and frankly concerning situation is playing out with a fictional but all too plausible company referred to as Veritas Hire AI.
Veritas Hire AI is a major player in the automated employment decision tool market. They sell their predictive hiring and performance assessment software to large corporations, but critically, also to federal agencies, say the Department of Veterans Affairs for screening thousands of job applications, or the Department of Defense for internal promotions.
So the government, which is theoretically meant to protect its citizens from discriminatory employment practices, is also buying and deploying these very tools.
Precisely. And here's where the conflict emerges. While Veritas Hire AI is actively securing lucrative government contracts to provide these systems, their well-funded lobbying arm is simultaneously pushing back hard against proposed federal guidelines. These guidelines, currently under consideration, would mandate independent bias audits and transparency requirements for any AI used in employment decisions, including those purchased by government agencies.
So they're selling the tools to the government with one hand, and with the other, they're attempting to weaken the very rules designed to ensure those tools are fair and accountable. It's a classic case of wanting to profit from a market without being constrained by its necessary oversight.
They argue these requirements are burdensome, stifle innovation, and add unnecessary costs. But the effect, if successful, would be to create a less scrutinized, less accountable environment for the very technology they are profiting from. The government, as both rulemaker and major AI customer, faces an inherent tension.
When the government is both a major customer and the primary regulator of AI employment tools, whose interests are truly being served?
Considering that tricky situation, what does all of this mean for companies who are genuinely trying to do the right thing? How do they navigate this landscape without falling into the AI alibi trap?
It means moving beyond a purely reactive, legalistic approach to a proactive one. Companies need to understand that simply buying an AI solution isn't enough. They need to implement robust governance frameworks. This includes ensuring diverse development teams, conducting continuous bias audits of their training data and their algorithms' outputs, and maintaining clear human oversight. So it's not about outsourcing the decision entirely to the machine, but using the machine as a tool with a human in the loop, always retaining ultimate responsibility?
Exactly. Human-in-the-loop oversight is critical. This involves reviewing algorithm recommendations, having clear processes for overriding them, and providing channels for individuals to challenge AI-driven decisions. It's about designing systems with explainability in mind from the outset, so that if a decision is questioned, there's a clear audit trail.
It sounds like a significant cultural shift for many organizations, especially those that embraced AI hoping to reduce human involvement and costs.
It is. But the cost of not doing so could be far greater: legal penalties, reputational damage, and a loss of trust from employees and candidates. Responsible AI deployment in HR isn't just an ethical imperative, it's a fundamental business imperative. Companies that fail to adapt will find their AI alibi offers no protection when discrimination claims hit.
It seems the AI alibi for discriminatory HR practices is rapidly collapsing under legal and regulatory scrutiny.
That's right. Regulators are moving to hold developers and deployers accountable, often through requirements for transparency, auditability, and impact assessments.
And critically, AI in HR doesn't eliminate human bias. It often automates and scales existing biases, making proactive measures essential.
Absolutely. The era of blindly trusting black box algorithms is ending, replaced by a demand for demonstrable fairness and human oversight.
What should listeners really take away from this?
That ethical AI deployment in HR is no longer optional. It's a proactive responsibility that requires continuous effort, not a one-time tech integration.
And it's also clear that the lines between who sets the rules and who profits from them are often blurred, especially when the government acts as a major AI customer.
It definitely raises questions about whose interests are prioritized in that dynamic.
Will the increasing regulatory pressure lead to better, more equitable HR systems, or simply more sophisticated ways to obscure algorithmic discrimination?
And how long until a major class action lawsuit fundamentally reshapes how companies use AI to hire and manage people, forcing a complete reckoning with these tools?
That's all for Law and the Machine. Join us next time as we continue exploring where AI and the law collide. If you found this useful, subscribe. We appreciate it.
The law will catch up, eventually.